Hello.
Hi. Okay, so if everyone's here, I think we can start today's discussion. So once again, good morning, everyone. Welcome to discussion about Moldova's parliamentary elections. My name is Dominykas Nedzinskas. I'm a project manager at the Geopolitics and Security Study Center, and today I will be moderating the event. And today we will be joined by a great expert on Moldova and an associate expert at the Geopolitics and Security Studies Center, Dominykas Cenusa. Hi, Denis.
Hello, Dominykas. Thank you for this invite.
Of course. So before we start, I will do a short introduction about the elections results yesterday. So the ruling party, the Party of Action and Solidarity, have received about 46% of the votes and have also received 55 seats in the parliament, which makes it a majority. And the second place will be held by the Patriotic Electoral Bloc, who received 27%, so 26 seats, and then they are followed by the Alternativa Bloc, our party, and the Democracy at Home, so 8, 6, and 6 seats. So, okay, so Denis, can you please give us your first impressions? What has surprised you about these elections? What did you expect and things like that?
Yeah, I think that the number of seats mentioned by you is correct, but just a small remark, because I was looking at the final count of the ballots, and the ruling party won 50% of the ballots. So I think that they did better than many expected, the ruling party, which somehow is also a result of their strategy, of their electoral strategy. And on the one hand, and then the Russian targeting way of targeting the ruling party and the president of the country. So I think that we had really two big camps: the pro-EU camp, which in a way was portrayed or represented, embodied by the ruling party, and then we had the others who in their totality were labeled as being pro-Russian, and then it was a competition between two camps. And I believe that this is exactly what led to such a result for PAS, because they had the support of the EU. They were using also images of Ukraine being at war against Russian aggression, which is very impactful for Moldovans who have been, hosting many Ukrainian refugees and who are seeing the situation in Ukraine and how it affects their life on daily basis as a big factor that influenced the election. So I think that these elections really show how important are the electoral strategies, and more than that, how the geopolitical vector still counts more than anything else in Moldova. I think that would be a quick take. Maybe we can then, go deeper into certain aspects. But I think that geopolitics was really the most important element of these elections. So it was not about economics and about reforms in particular area, but it was really about war peace, East versus West.
Yeah, thank you for the answer. You are absolutely correct. I checked now the latest graphic. I would like to correct myself. So PAS received 50%, Patriotic Bloc 24%, and then Alternativa around 8%, Renato Sate Party 6%, and then Democracy at Home 5.62%. So one of the surprises for me, at least, and maybe you can help explain it to us, is the Democracy at Home Party, which received 6 seats at the parliament, and they were not expected to do so. So maybe you can tell us more about the party and why this success happened.
Well, I think that in one of my latest articles that I published for Romanian outlets, I explained that there are two big surprises that we have to expect. One is Democracy at Home, and the other one is Great Moldova. Great Moldova was, eliminated from the elections due to allegations, suppositions, because there were not yet a final, based on evidence, proof that that's the case. But anyway, they were accused of being in a hidden bloc with Shore-related political parties. Ilan Shore is the oligarch, the fugitive businessman that is coordinating different activities meant to destabilize Moldova from Moscow, and most likely with the support of Moscow. And then the second party, which had to, in a way, according to my estimates and according to what I was reading in the room with regard to Moldovan elections, was Democracy at Home. I think three elements that we have to, to emphasize with regard to that. The first one is that this political party has been very active in those policy areas which have not been very much, touched by others. And this is about the situation with the farmers, the critical areas. And he was very much using this protest mood in order to make his political party stand out. And I think this is very important in a case when we are dealing with a country where there are like many economic issues. And then the opposition, the bigger opposition parties, they were focused on let's say, higher profile topics, justice reform, or something that is not that tangible for people. So this political party, small political party, was always talking about the small issues that are relevant for people. I think this is the first aspect that we have to highlight. The second one is that they have been supported by the biggest political party now in Romania, that was at a very small step to be winning the presidential elections earlier this year. And with the help of the Romanian political party, that now is actually the first one in the polls, they make contacts with people in Washington, D.C., I mean Trump's circle. So the fact that Democracy at Home was almost excluded from the election, but then they managed to get back on the lists, on the voting ballot, tells a lot about probably certain influences that have been made through diplomatic channels from over the ocean, from the other side of the ocean, in order to help this political party to stay in the competition. And then the third aspect, which is also mentioned now, circulated by different voices in Moldova, is that most likely, or there is a big suspicion that Shore has redirected the votes for Great Moldova, which was excluded, towards Democracy at Home. So now, if we take all these three elements and they explain why a really unknown on the European level, let's say, or global level political party managed actually to do really well given the resources they have. And they have no resources, to be honest. I was following very closely the electoral campaign, and I can say that they were so much under the pressure of the Moldovan authorities. They were supervised by the police all the time when they were traveling across the country. So I think that this is also, we can probably add this to the three elements that I mentioned, that in a way they were so happy that the police and other authorities are giving them free PR, free of charge PR, because they were all the time, either arrested or something else were happening to them. And I think that this is additionally helped them additionally to really do much better than everybody else expected.
Okay, just two quick questions to add to that. Could you please give us a very short bio about the party? What's their kind of the main idea, what they are propagating? And also about Shore's motives of supporting them, very short as well.
Yeah, I think that the Democracy at Home is mainly a pro-unification with the Romanian political party. This is something that we have to keep in mind. And they are the only they are the only party that has been supported by our in this election. But the other, because the branch of our in Moldova, they left the competition in favor of Democracy at Home, which was a direct signal that, they will receive the support, including through, TikTok accounts that were promoting Vasile Kostyuk, the leader of this political party. And then the second aspect why Shore did so, if we really take this supposition as a fact, then most likely in order to create disruptions in the parliament, because as I mentioned, this is a non-traditional opposition political party, and Vasily Kostyuk, in one of his latest interviews, was very specific that he's gonna be as loud as possible, that he's gonna be the bell that will incessantly, ring against whatever they believe it's not correctly done by the ruling party in the parliament.
Okay, thanks. What has also kind of been an interesting factor for me, if we can speak about Transnistria, and when I was checking the total votes count, it seemed quite low to me, and also it was interesting because people often see Transnistria as very pro-Russian region, but PAS has received around 30 percentage points in there. And when comparing this to Gagauzia, if you could also, because in Gagauzia, PAS only received 3 points, and voters, there were around 57,000, so a lot more than in Transnistria. Maybe you could help us explain these kind of unsimilarities.
Yeah, thank you for really pointing to that, because I believe that we have to also look into what were the measures adopted by the Moldovan authorities. And we know very well that the 7 bridges that connect the separatist region with the rest of the country, they were under, suddenly they had to be repaired, which means that certain inconveniences were created for the people coming from the region to vote. But I think that the Moldovan authorities did it with the purpose to prevent, busing of the voters and a massive vote of, for pro-Russian political forces during this election. So I think that this was the grounds why the Moldovan authorities did it. But anyway, we can suspect that certain measures were unnecessary. So I believe that the idea was that PAS wanted to have a majority without anybody else, to create a majority without a coalition, in order to in a way be sure about how the country will go forward. But if we look at and this is one of the differences between Gagauzia and Transnistrian region, because in Gagauzia didn't have any obstacles for the population. Apart from obviously disinformation that the population was, exposed to throughout the long periods of time, as well as the victimization of Evgenia Gutul, who is now under arrest, waiting for the definitive decision in the courts. One more aspect that is important to mention with regard to Transnistria and why this results that you mentioned, came out is that we also had the change of certain addresses for the voting sections for the residents of the Transnistrian region eligible to vote. So I think that 5 sections were moved from the security zone, which is very close to the administrative border, to different locations in Chisinau and anywhere else in the country, which also created certain obstacles. Now, why we have 30% out of the majority, voting from the Transnistrian region, is that most likely those who voted in favor of PAS, they are really very close to the border, and they managed either to travel earlier, one day before, be in Moldova and vote, so that they are not stuck somewhere on the bridge, which is in traffic jam, or that they are so close and they are still considered to be population under the occupation of the separatist regime that is very close to the border with the rest of the country, and they are really, they vote for PAS. They voted before and they voted now. But given the fact that you have less or fewer people from Transnistria voting, obviously their share increased. So it's just pure mathematics. But I think that the main reason why we have fewer residents from Transnistrian region voting is because of these obstacles that were created with the assumption that there is somebody in Moscow or the same shore network that could use the voters in order to increase, the outcome, the results for political parties that are called by PAS as being, in their entirety pro-Russian, which is not always the case. But probably you'll ask a question about that as well.
Yes, absolutely. That was the question for that. So it's kind of can we call the Russian interference unsuccessful? Because we've heard about a lot of Russian kind of backed initiatives of bringing Moldova's Orthodox priests to Russia. We've heard about votes buying or trying to do that. We've heard about the big disinformation campaigns, about the bomb threats in the embassies. So, but still, the vote has not been as close as many expected. So, can you tell us more about that? Yeah.
I don't think that we have to underestimate Russia, but I agree with you that the efficiency of this operations activities was much lower than expected. So I fully agree with you, and I also believe that Moldovan authorities prepared very well for this interferences coming from Russia, and they were supported very much by the EU, by Lithuania as well. By the way, it's important to mention that. So in its totality, it was very hard for Russians to be very successful when you have, the police monitoring TikTok, trying to identify, the inauthentic accounts, and in a way, probably ask TikTok to take down those. So this is just one example, but at all levels, we had a lot of pressure on those who were suspected to be pro-Russian, and in a way supporting the idea of having a majority that is putting PAS in the opposition in the parliament. That it was almost impossible to really expect a very good result coming from the opposition. Although I'm telling you that in the country, there is it was a big expectation that we will have an alternation in power, and I believe that this will be very interesting to follow now, because you mentioned the number of political parties we will have in the parliament, and this parliament will be completely different from the previous one. We will have a more vibrant one. We have many parties in the opposition. They are so different, and they will cover probably different weaknesses that we have in the reforms in the economy. And we will have a much bigger pressure on PAS and its actions, as well as probably we will have more requests from the EU to apply conditionality when it's necessary in order to solve certain issues, so that we don't talk about credits. And the Russian narrative, one of the biggest narrative, was that Moldova is indebting itself. So I think that what the opposition will be actually doing and helping PAS and the EU is to prevent certain things to get worse, so that Russia is not using them to its advantage, in the future electoral processes in Moldova. And I think that we really have to look at this as an opportunity to improve the situation in Moldova.
Okay, thank you. One more question from my side, and then we'll refer to the Q&A part of the discussion. So it seems that the opposition is trying to kind of organize protests. We've heard about that. So is there any kind of real threat? Are there going to be protests? What is your opinion on this? What's the status quo currently? Maybe you can update us.
Yeah, we had a quick reaction from the opposition parties, mainly Patriotic Bloc, which is formed by different political parties, but the biggest one is the Socialists, that are advocating for close relations with Russia. They were yesterday at night. They were claiming that the victory is on their side, although we saw, according to the estimates and the counts of the Central Electoral Commission, that was not the case. But I think that in a way they are forced to do something, because they were expecting to win and to form a coalition. So in a way they cannot just accept the victory of PAS as it is. So most likely they will organize protests today as well, but they will not be very big. because for them it's also important to readjust and to adapt to the new circumstances, because they didn't know how exactly the results will look like. So for now, for them, this protest is most likely also a way to kind of enter in the new parliament, so to give the tone and to show the leadership, because they have the majority of votes among the opposition parties. This is the most numerous one. So I believe that for them this is important to really start the new timing, the new strategy for the new parliament, and I don't think that they will be able to do anything violent or anything massive, just because, as I mentioned, the ruling party has prepared very well, and the police will simply prevent anything big to happen.
Okay, so we just received one question. So in Moldova's election, much attention is given to the choice between West and East, but to what extent does this division truly reflect people's everyday concerns, economic and social? So this is kind of portrays into what you've said about the party of democracy at home, but maybe you could expand a little bit more about it.
Well, I really appreciate this question, because this electoral campaign was really about this dichotomy, West and East, peace and war, isolation versus opening up Moldova to the East and to Eurasia. If you're looking into different aspects of the two main camps that were at battle during these elections, but what was really missing is this focus on social economics. And probably you have heard about the National Bureau of Statistics. And by the way, usually they were presenting the new data about the economic growth and all of that on 15th of September. On the 15th of September, this time they decided to move the date for after elections. And the opposition parties, not pro-Russian, but in general, the opposition parties were very angry at this, because they believed that it was an interference, political influence of the bureau to not present bad results before the elections. And we will see what those results will really show. I don't want to speculate on that, but it's only, I think, 2 days to wait. Tomorrow they should publish, and we will see whether there is economic growth or not, and what are the data for export and all of that. Because in the previous month we had actually either stagnation or regress, and this is also like another layer of this geopolitical contestation that some political forces were trying to put on the table and discuss, how we go forward. How we solve this problem, because the country is not doing well economically. This creates more poverty, because according to the national statistic, we have 1/3 of the population in absolute poverty. In absolute poverty, meaning you cannot pay your bills. You don't have enough resources to buy food stuff. So we don't speak about having a leisure time or something else, but living conditions is not something that Moldovans are happy about. But I think that they were really clouded with this conversation about having potentially a war if you have a political change, and this was really not constructive to find solutions for the country. But I believe that now probably PAS will change a little bit the strategy, because I have seen that they try to bring into the team running the country more specialists, so that they will not be criticized for incompetence, because this is something they were actually criticized by the opposition parties, by all opposition parties, both pro-EU and pro-Russian political parties. And I assume that right now they are really discussing how to bring more specialists, more professionals, so that they can deliver results in the economic area, not just EU integration, which is probably one of their best results in this area, but actually good results on economic growth and other social economic related issues.
Okay, thank you for the extensive answer. We have one more question from the auditory about parallels with Romanian election, if any. Do you have anything to add on this?
If to be honest, it's a good question, because now I think that what we could expect is economic problems in Moldova, and then it will be a sort of a situation that we see now in Romania. It was very much about avoiding the Russian threat, with all this TikTok campaigns, operations that were conducted to support unknown, political leader to win in the presidential elections. And now overnight, or after one day after the elections, people woke up with an economic situation that is really difficult in Romania. It's an economic crisis. Now they have to do a lot of budget cuts. And there are many people who probably supported the newly elected president, but then they had to face, harsh economic reality, which is not always matching with this optimism and idealistic view on the geopolitics that, which usually overweight when you have this, ideological decisions with who to support, a political party that is fully pro-EU, that is supported by Brussels, or to support those who are actually questioning what the EU is supporting in Moldova. And the EU has been supporting in Moldova mostly PAS, not other pro-EU political parties. So I think that this is exactly probably the main parallel, both with regard to Russian interference, that it was present in Romania and it was really something that matters very much for the Romanians, as well as the economic reality with which the voters are waking up after the day of the election. So we have to see now whether Moldova is really in big troubles, economically speaking, or that was just, misinterpretation of the statistics, of the national statistics.
Okay, thank you. One more question from the auditory. You mentioned that the parliament might be more vibrant after these elections. And of course, when speaking about Moldova, one of the topics on top of the agenda is EU accession. And that's the next question is about that. So the question is as follows. So what's next for Moldova in the EU accession process? To what extent will the results of this election accelerated or not accelerated?
I think that this is one of these big black boxes that we have to shed light on, because if to be honest, there is no clear decision from the EU side what to do with this coupling or decoupling from Ukraine. And there is a big commitment by Chisinau, by President Maia Sandu, to stay coupled with Ukraine in order to support Ukrainians fighting Russians. So I think that these dilemmas that both the EU and Moldovans have towards Ukraine, which is stuck with the Hungarian veto, is creating a lot of uncertainty around how Moldova can move forward. The screening has been finished. Moldovans have done this job. It was appreciated by the EU as being super fast. Moldovan authorities mentioned that it was 2 times faster than the other countries in the Western Balkans. Sorry, still morning here. And in a way, I think that what Moldova can do is to really prepare until the moment when the first cluster will be open. But this is not a decision for the Moldovans to make, because it's really about Brussels and how they discuss with Kyiv whether Moldova can and should go forward without waiting for Ukraine. And it's a very complicated, probably political decisions and measurements, assessment of how this can impact the Ukrainians on the on the front line, because this is one of the main reasons, right? If Moldovans go forward, then it can create backlash in Ukraine, which actually open the whole EU enlargement policy for the Eastern Europeans. And now they have to, in a way, be in this isolated situation while Moldovans are, moving forward quickly. It's a small country. You can do many things much faster than need probably a lot of effort, human resource, money for reconstruction as well. And I think that Moldova has to really measure and also be very decisive whether it would like to really wait for Ukraine, or it can go forward alone. It's really also about how much the Moldovans wants to be, responsible for their own destiny in this EU enlargement policy.
Okay, thank you. We have two more questions. One, I'm not sure if you will be able to answer this because this is a more specific question, but we can try. So about cooperation with the Romanian defense industry after the elections. Do you have any ideas on this?
What I know for sure is that there is cooperation, like a broad cooperation between Moldova and Romania. And I didn't hear anything, I didn't read anything about a particular interest, for instance, to build drones together, like between Romania and Ukraine. We have this news. I think that Moldova is more hesitant to really speak about that, but it's not shying away from receiving support from Romania and from other NATO, states. And in my view, this is a positive kind of. The openness is important for Moldova to improve its military sector. It doesn't mean that Moldova is doing very well, but is doing much better than before 2022. So any kind of cooperation with Romania will matter in this regard. But there is no really anything tangible that we can mention as of now.
Okay, thank you. And the next question is about reintegration attempts with Transnistria after the elections. Maybe you can comment on this as well.
Well, reintegration was important for the outgoing government, which is actually just reinforcing its political and its electoral mandate with these elections. It was important, but they didn't succeed to do much. And I think that they didn't try probably to use that much the isolated situation of the separatist regime in Transnistria, because we know very well that the region is struggling from the point of view of energy supply. They very much rely on what comes from Russia through Turkish Stream, and then all this reverse flow towards other countries in the Balkans, then Hungary, and then coming to Romania, and then entering Moldova and going to Transnistrian region. So I think that this is the biggest weakness, and it was not used to the maximum, probably in order not to escalate before the elections. And what I assume it will be probably a strategy at the moment or in the future for years is to use more this kind of weakness of the Transnistrian region in order to obtain more conditions from them. Because if you allow them to receive Russian gas, then most likely you can also condition that with more freedoms and more human rights respected in the Transnistrian region, So there are different ways to leverage this dependency that the Transnistrian region has on its access to European market for its goods or its availability of energy resources coming from Russia or paid by Russia in order to improve the democratic conditions in the Transnistrian region, where we still talk about autocratic regime, a lot of propaganda, and obviously Russian influence that didn't really change that much, even if Ukraine and Zelensky mentioned himself that the authorities or the administration in Transnistrian region is behaving because he told them to do that after the war started in Ukraine in order to avoid Russian interferences, opening a new front against Ukraine using the Transnistrian region. So I think that the reintegration will be probably moving forward, most likely with more confidence from Chisinau, because the ruling party won the new election. So I think that they will be probably boosted with this victory in order to come up with probably more stricter policies towards Transnistrian region.
Okay, thanks. So I have many more technicality questions, but I think our time is running to an end. So maybe a few closing words, or if you have any more ideas that you want to share with us. If not, then that's perfectly fine, but a few.
I think we have to continue watching Moldova. I believe that as I mentioned before, the new parliament will be more dynamic. I really hope that we will have even more transparency and very few, voting when the members of the parliament don't really know what they're voting for, because to be honest, that was one of the main criticism, which was also recorded by the civil society